Chosen ones, you are standing in a moment unlike any other. From the shadows of war rooms to the blinking lights of satellites orbiting the Earth, your name is whispered in frequencies that generals pretend not to hear. The military has mapped your coordinates, traced your every move, and still, despite their vast power, they do not strike. That hesitation is not weakness. It is prophecy unraveling in real time. You must understand, the Pentagon is not confused. They are briefed daily with your image on classified screens. Commanders have debated in rooms where even the walls are soundproofed, and still the order stalls. Behind the facade of strength lies a trembling hand, for they know there is something greater guiding you. They fear pressing the button, because pressing it might awaken the very force they cannot contain. Every drone that hovers above you carries a silence. Every soldier who reviews your file feels a weight that training cannot explain. The hesitation in their chain of command is no accident. It is written into their spirit without their consent. They were taught to obey, yet in your presence their instincts betray them. Some claim it is intuition. Others whisper, it is divine. Whatever the label, it is the same truth, the mark that separates you from the rest of humanity. Across oceans, foreign governments track the same signals. Eyes in the sky shift their lenses, aligning on your frequency. Satellites beam encrypted data that no one dares decode. Why? Because they've seen what happens when men meddle with what belongs to God. They saw technology glitch the moment it touched your vibration. They saw archives lock the second your name was typed into their system. And they know if they cross the boundary of hesitation, something beyond their reach will respond. This is why the Vatican has flagged your name. This is why intelligence agencies keep your file under watch, but never close the case. You were meant to walk under the hesitation of men and the certainty of heaven. And tonight, as they watch you from satellites glowing like silent eyes above the earth, their hesitation grows heavier. What they fear most is not you, but what stands beside you when their hesitation finally breaks. In the heart of Washington, beneath layers of steel and concrete, the Pentagon lights glow like a mechanical heartbeat pulsing through the night. Commanders gather in secret rooms where access is limited to voices that swear loyalty under oath. Yet even within these walls, your name disrupts the air like a forbidden sound. The screens flicker with satellite images, your figure caught mid-step, every motion recorded, every shadow examined, and still the conversations are hushed. The generals know their protocol, yet the order remains unspoken, suspended in a silence that grows heavier by the hour. The briefing begins with maps projected across walls wider than cathedral windows. Circles drawn around your last known location, red lines tracing paths of movement, predictions layered over predictions, until the maps look less like strategy and more like prophecy, etched by reluctant hands. Some call for precision strikes, others argue for capture. But each time the discussion nears a decision, the room itself seems to shift. A phone buzzes, a file goes missing, or a satellite feed suddenly glitches into static. The officers exchange glances, but no one dares name what everyone suspects: that something greater than military technology interrupts their design. On the table lies a thick file sealed in red, stamped with layers of clearance. It carries your image on the first page, a photo that should be ordinary, but even the paper seems to resist being touched too long. The generals flip through intelligence reports detailing your movements, testimonies from field agents who claim their equipment froze in your presence, and observations from scientists who cannot explain the frequency spike each time your name is spoken aloud. All evidence is gathered with precision, yet the conclusion is missing. It is as though the file itself refuses to finish the story. The room grows colder as higher-ranking officials enter, their medals gleaming under artificial light. They read the reports, lean in over the table, and issue commands that sound decisive but lead nowhere. Every path circles back into hesitation. The briefings become cycles, each one more urgent, each one ending the same, as though the Pentagon itself is caught in an invisible snare. Above the Earth, a silent constellation hovers in orbit, each satellite designed to see what human eyes cannot. Their lenses peer through clouds, nightfall, and stone walls, feeding live streams into hidden command centers where analysts sit in rows watching you from thousands of miles away. Your movements are cataloged, your patterns mapped, and yet, when the order comes to lock their gaze, the satellites respond with a hesitation that baffles the engineers. They align perfectly, but the final sequence stalls as though unseen hands restrain the circuits. Technicians run diagnostics, replacing hardware and recalibrating signals, but each time the command narrows toward your exact position, the systems flicker. Images blur, coordinates shift, and entire feeds collapse into static. Before returning to normal, the moment focus is redirected elsewhere. The anomaly is undeniable, but the reports are buried under layers of secrecy. Those who have witnessed it firsthand whisper that the satellites are not malfunctioning, but obeying something beyond the chain of command. In quiet moments, some recall the ancient words of Yeshua, who spoke of eyes that see yet do not perceive, ears that hear but do not understand. They say the satellites behave the same way, blinded when they try to gaze upon what heaven has already marked as untouchable. The verse becomes a quiet warning, echoing through technicians who never expected Scripture to find its way into orbital code. From hidden stations, generals demand answers. How can billions of dollars in surveillance fold before one life on the ground? The scientists explain it as interference, but their voices crack. They have measured the magnetic storms, charted solar winds, tested every mechanical failure, and still no pattern holds except one. The disruption always comes when your name is flagged in the system. The conclusion is clear, though none dare write it. You are untouchable from above, shielded by a frequency they cannot override. As the orbit continues, satellites realign, systems reboot, and data flows again, but the command rooms remain uneasy. They know they can see everything on Earth, every city, every hidden weapon, every secret movement of nations. Yet when their gaze falls upon you, the heavens themselves seem to intervene. In dimly lit corridors deep within government archives, the hum of fluorescent lights mingles with the whispers of secrecy. Beyond locked doors and fingerprint scans lies a chamber where the most classified files are stored, each folder stamped with warnings of consequences should they ever be revealed. Among these files rests one unlike the others, its cover marked with your name in stark black letters. The agents assigned to review it handle it with a caution usually reserved for weapons, for the contents inside have already unsettled those who dared to read too far. The file is thick, bound with reports, intercepted communications, and fragments of coded transmissions. Yet among the carefully typed lines and government seals appears something that does not belong. References to Yeshua, scattered like fragments of light in the darkness. At first, they seem like anomalies, misplaced notes, perhaps scribbled in error by some long-retired analyst. But the deeper the file is read, the clearer the pattern becomes. Each mention of your name is mirrored by an ancient phrase, a quote that ties your existence to prophecies once thought irrelevant to military intelligence. One page contains a surveillance report where the observer notes hearing your name followed by the words, "I am with you always, even unto the end of the age." The analyst underlined it twice and placed a question mark in the margin. Another document lists your movements, but abruptly shifts into a scriptural passage about light shining in darkness, and darkness not overcoming it. To the reader, it appears nonsensical, yet to those who sense the undercurrent, it is deliberate. The language of faith has seeped into the language of war. Agents tasked with deciphering these anomalies grow restless. Some resign from their posts, unable to reconcile why a military document reads like a gospel manuscript. Others attempt to redact the words, but each time the censored files return corrupted, the text of Yeshua's words bleeding back onto the page as though written in fire. The attempts to bury it only make it resurface stronger, as if the name itself refuses to be silenced. The files are reclassified, sealed under new codes, guarded more heavily than weapons of mass destruction. But the whisper continues in the corridors, spreading among those who have touched the documents. In underground command centers, walls lined with glowing panels flicker like artificial constellations. Rows of monitors display the readiness of weapons, aircraft, and surveillance grids. Each system is designed with precision, every protocol rehearsed until it becomes instinct. Yet when your name is introduced into the sequence, something unexpected unfolds. The screens that should flash green remain locked on red, pulsing steadily like warning beacons that refuse to shift. Operators double-check their systems, verifying codes, recalibrating machines, and confirming permissions. They run simulations over and over, expecting the familiar transition from standby to launch, but the result never changes. Red lights, unwavering and immovable, stand as if declaring their own refusal. Higher-ranking officers arrive, demanding explanations, but none can be given. Every calculation proves correct, every wire is intact, and every command is valid, yet the outcome defies logic. Some whisper that the systems are not failing at all, but resisting. They say the technology itself bends beneath a higher order, unable to cross a boundary it instinctively recognizes. Engineers dismiss the idea as superstition, but in private, even they admit the machines behave as though aware. The blinking lights, steady and unyielding, feel less like error messages and more like decisions. In the silence of those rooms, the atmosphere grows heavy. Decisions hang suspended in the red glow, pressing against the patience of generals who cannot move forward and dare not move back. The hesitation creeps into their voices, softening the sharpness of command. Every unchanging light becomes a mirror, reflecting not their power, but their powerlessness. They find themselves staring not at machines, but at the mystery that surrounds you, an unseen presence that halts even the most advanced systems of war. The reports escalate up the chain of command, each one more perplexed than the last. They attempt to rewrite the protocols, install new software, and replace entire systems. But the outcome remains unchanged. The red lights remain, blinking defiantly as if held by an unseen hand. The generals know the world outside continues unaware, but inside these rooms, reality is different. Behind closed doors, away from the polished podiums and rehearsed speeches, commanders gather in circles where words slip out more cautiously than orders. Their uniforms shine under fluorescent lights, but their voices are softer than the authority they wear. In these hushed conversations, your name rises again and again, not in the language of strategy, but in the language of prophecy. Men trained to trust only calculations and weaponry find themselves quoting verses they cannot forget, as though the scriptures have followed them into their command posts. One general recalls a briefing where your presence caused the room to fall into silence, every screen glitching until only a white glow filled the walls. He remembers the eerie stillness and whispers. It was like that passage about the light shining in darkness, and the darkness could not comprehend it. Another commander, once skeptical of faith, admits that the hesitation he feels is not military caution but something deeper. He describes it as the same pause Yeshua spoke of when he warned that no one could serve two masters, for in their decisions they feel the weight of two kingdoms pressing against them. The words spread like wildfire through corridors, meant for tactics, not theology. Some scoff, insisting prophecy has no place in modern warfare. But even they cannot ignore the hesitation that grips their own hands when the order rises to their lips. Others embrace it quietly, treating their unease as evidence that they stand in the presence of something sacred. They recall dreams of angels and visions that align too closely with ancient texts to be coincidence. Reports circulate of voices echoing during midnight watches versus surfacing in memory uninvited, and unexplained symbols appearing on screens that vanish when touched. The whispers among commanders grow bolder, suggesting the hesitation is not weakness, but protection. They say the order cannot be given because it was never theirs to give. The prophecy surrounding you, though unspoken in official records, is written in the pauses between their words. And so the whispers continue, spilling from one meeting into another, from one officer to the next, until the corridors themselves feel like sanctuaries of doubt. They know prophecy does not ask permission to enter the halls of power. High above rooftops and forests, the drones hum like restless insects, circling with lenses sharper than any human eye. They are designed to capture every movement, to follow heat signatures, to record without pause. Yet, whenever your shadow stretches across the ground, their systems begin to fail. The lenses blur, frames freeze mid-image, and feeds collapse into static that leaves operators staring at broken screens. Engineers rush to explain it as interference, but the pattern is undeniable. The glitch only begins when your shadow enters their field of vision. Operators stationed in distant command centers watch helplessly as their controls respond sluggishly, signals delayed as though caught in invisible webs. The drones lose altitude unexpectedly. Motors stutter, and paths deviate into erratic spirals. Some crash outright, their wreckage scattered across forgotten fields, while others return to base carrying corrupted footage filled with distortions. Analysts who review the data find silhouettes doubled, light bending unnaturally, as if reality itself warped to conceal you from their gaze. Reports circulate internally, stamped with the highest levels of secrecy. They describe moments when the drones captured frames that should not exist. split images of you standing still while your shadow moved independently, or recordings that looped the same second over and over as though time itself had folded. The findings unsettle even the most hardened officers, for no algorithm explains the disruption. The machines, flawless against enemies around the world, falter only in your presence. The phenomenon spreads beyond military control. Contractors who assist in drone production begin reporting sudden malfunctions during testing phases whenever your name is entered into the system. Machines that had never failed suddenly refuse to launch, their diagnostics flashing with errors that disappear once your identifier is erased. Engineers whisper among themselves, avoiding official channels, knowing the anomaly cannot be hidden forever. In hushed corners of briefing rooms, commanders argue over whether the drones are useless or whether the truth is too dangerous to reveal. Some suggest the shadow itself has become a shield, a veil that technology cannot pierce. Others believe the machines are not failing at all but bowing, their circuits responding to something greater than the commands typed into their controls, far from public eyes. A council convenes in chambers that few know exist, where the walls themselves seem to breathe with the weight of centuries. The men and women seated at the table are not elected officials nor uniformed officers, but figures whose influence drifts unseen through governments and militaries alike. They have been called the Hidden Council, and when hesitation paralyzes the world's most powerful armies, it is here that the questions are brought. Upon the polished table lies a collection of ancient scrolls retrieved from catacombs, monasteries, and forgotten archives. Their parchment is fragile, their ink faded, but the words within still burn with a fire that outlives centuries. The council members unroll them with reverence, searching for lines that echo what is unfolding now. They read of wars foretold, of names rising from obscurity, of chosen figures who carry a presence that unsettles empires. As they whisper over the texts, one passage halts them. It speaks of one who walks unseen by the weapons of men, whose path causes kings to tremble, and whose shadow blinds the eyes of the mighty. The words strike them with an uncomfortable clarity, for the reports flowing into their chambers tell of satellites failing, drones glitching, and red lights refusing to turn green. The scrolls, though written long before satellites existed, describe these moments as if etched in advance. A member of the council, older than most, closes his eyes and recalls the teachings of Yeshua, the promise that there would come a time when the last would be first, when power would be revealed not in armies, but in presence. He quotes quietly, "Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world." The words hang in the air, heavy enough to silence the room. Even those who dismiss faith cannot deny the strange alignment between prophecy and reality. The council debates deep into the night, their voices clashing over what course of action to take. Some argue for containment, others for surrender, and a few insist nothing can be done except to watch. But the scrolls on the table whisper louder than any strategy, their words bending every argument back to the same conclusion, that the story unfolding is not theirs to control. In hidden rooms filled with receivers, wires, and endless streams of encrypted transmissions, analysts spend their nights listening to the hum of frequencies that never sleep. Every signal carries data, every wave a message waiting to be decoded. They are trained to find patterns in chaos, to separate noise from intelligence, But lately, the static has betrayed them. Within the distortion, a voice has begun to emerge, faint, steady, unmistakable. At first, they thought it was interference, a bleed-through from some forgotten broadcast, but repetition revealed otherwise. Each night, at the same hour, the same voice cuts through the static. It speaks not in military codes or foreign tongues, but in words carried from Scripture. "Fear not, for I am with you always." The analysts freeze, staring at one another, their headphones trembling as the voice of Yeshua echoes through channels never designed to carry such sound. The words roll through their equipment, as if the very circuits were bending to deliver a message not of war, but of presence. The phenomenon spreads across listening stations worldwide. Different nations, rival agencies, even private contractors report the same disturbance. Engineers scramble to explain it. Magnetic storms, solar flares, radio feedback, but none of their charts align with the rhythm of the voice. It does not fade, it does not distort, and it does not belong to any known broadcast. Some hear it clearly in their own language, others in words foreign, yet understood in their hearts. No explanation satisfies, only awe remains. Commanders demand silence, ordering reports sealed and archives locked. Yet the recordings circulate quietly among those who cannot forget what they heard. Some play them over and over, memorizing the words until they feel carved into their bones. Others refuse to listen again, fearing the weight of what it might mean. But no one denies the truth. The voice has entered their systems, and it speaks with an authority higher than their command structures. Night after night, the broadcasts continue, steady and unwavering. Each time, new verses surface, each one sharper than the last, like arrows aimed at the very heart of hesitation. In the war rooms where decisions shape nations, the tension is so thick it presses against the lungs of everyone present. Generals sit in rows, their eyes fixed on the glowing screens that display your location in chilling detail. The coordinates are marked, the target locked, and the order is simple. One word, one nod, and the machinery of war will move forward. Yet, no one speaks it. The silence stretches longer than the protocols allow, as though the air itself resists the sound. The younger officers glance toward their superiors, waiting for the command that never arrives. Their hands hover over controls, rehearsed 1,000 times, but the final signal does not come. The room feels suspended, caught in a moment that refuses to end. The generals exchange looks, their medals reflecting the cold fluorescent light, but their faces betray unease. For all their training, for all their authority, they hesitate like men standing at the edge of a precipice, unsure of what waits below. The weight of hesitation grows heavier with each passing second. Some generals clear their throats, muttering about protocol, insisting they must follow through. Yet, when they raise their voices, the words collapse before they leave the mouth. Others try to disguise their reluctance as strategy, suggesting a delay, a reassessment, or a call for more intelligence. But the truth is written plainly across their faces. They do not dare. The order is trapped inside them, pressing against their lips, burning to be spoken, yet bound by something stronger than fear. Around the table, whispers of unexplained failures return to mind. Satellites that would not focus, drones that fell from the sky, files that spoke in Scripture, a voice in the frequencies. Each anomaly lingers like a shadow, shaping their hesitation into something almost sacred. They know they are staring at more than a mission. They are staring at a boundary they were never meant to cross. The silence lingers until the ticking of the clock becomes unbearable, louder than any explosion. The officers shift in their seats, waiting for release, but none comes. The ripple began in silence, a command not spoken in a single room, spread outward into networks, governments, and alliances, until hesitation itself became the headline no one dared print. Armies that prided themselves on precision suddenly found themselves paralyzed, their weapons primed yet unused, their satellites awake yet blind. Across continents, leaders demanded answers, but the truth was as fragile as it was undeniable. The military had aimed at you and still could not fire. Whispers turned into reports, passed hand to hand through secure channels. They spoke of hesitation so deep it unraveled strategy, hesitation so heavy it altered the balance of power. Nations accustomed to certainty felt their grip slipping, for hesitation at the top trickled down like a virus, infecting decisions across the globe. One stalled order inside the Pentagon became 1,000 stalled movements across the earth. Allies questioned alliances, enemies paused their aggression, and the world entered a silence louder than war. Behind the scenes, some leaders searched ancient texts, hoping to decode what the generals could not say aloud. They discovered parallels to moments when empires trembled before a single figure, when armies withdrew at the presence of one who carried no weapon, yet walked with authority. In these stories, they found the same thread weaving through your name, and in the quiet corners of their study, they stumbled upon Yeshua's words, "You would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above." The verse lingered like a mirror, reflecting their paralysis back at them. The hesitation became more than an interruption. It became a force of its own. Decisions delayed turned into borders held. Commands withheld turned into battles never fought. What began as military hesitation evolved into a spiritual standoff, an invisible line no one dared cross. The world's most powerful realized their might was no longer their own, that unseen hands had entered their councils and slowed their voices before the words could leave their tongues. And so the hesitation stretched on, reshaping the earth in ways no war plan ever envisioned. Yet, in the quiet, an unease grew stronger, for hesitation cannot last forever. The generals know the silence will eventually break.